At approximately 2300 hours on Friday, April 3, 2026, day 35 of Operation Epic Fury, a U.S. Air Force F-15E Strike Eagle from the 4094th Fighter Squadron, RAF Lakenheath, England, was conducting a combat strike mission over Iran when the sky above central Iran erupted. The aircraft did not come home, both crew members ejected. And for the next 36 hours, everything that followed would be the most dangerous, most tactically intricate, and most politically explosive crisis of the entire war, because one of those airmen was alive, moving, hunted, and hiding in the mountain wilderness of Koyale and Boyar Ahmad province in southwest Iran, while the entire IRGC ground and air apparatus mobilized to find him before the United States could. What you are about to witness is not a rehearsed theoretical scenario from a war college tabletop exercise. This is the real sequence of events, system by system, hour by hour, from the moment an unidentified IRGC air defense weapon put a two-seat Strike Eagle into a mountain range, to the moment a U.S. Air Force colonel, wounded but alive, was lifted out of a firefight zone inside Iran and declared safe and sound by the President of the United States. This is the story of the most dangerous 36 hours of the most dangerous war the United States has fought in a generation. And it started with a weapon nobody expected was still operational. The shootdown. Iran's hide-in card for 5 weeks. President Trump had been telling the American people that Iran's air defenses had been 100% annihilated. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth had declared in a Pentagon briefing that Iran's radar network was gone, that the skies over Iran were dominated by U.S. and Israeli air power, and that Operation Epic Fury was proceeding with total air superiority. Those were not lies, they were incomplete truths. Because even as the joint U.S.-Israeli strike package destroyed Iran's S-300 batteries, its Bavar 373 long-range systems, its radar installations and command networks, something remained. Buried inside Iran's decentralized air defense architecture, the part that is not networked, not dependent on destroyed command nodes, and not trackable through electronic intelligence collection, was a capability that the IRGC Aerospace Force had been holding in reserve. The IRGC's near news outlet described it as a new advanced air defense system. CENTCOM did not immediately confirm the loss, and the nature of the system that brought down the 494th Fighter Squadron aircraft is still classified. But the forensic picture being assembled by U.S. Air Force investigators points to one likely candidate, an upgraded variant of the Rod-2 surface-to-air missile, a domestically produced Iranian system with an active radar seeker that does not depend on a central tracking network and can engage autonomously at medium altitude. If confirmed, the Rayad-2 variant exploited the exact vulnerability that every air dominance doctrine struggles to address, the weapon that isn't on your radar because it was never connected to the radars you destroyed. Iran had hidden its card, and it played it on day 35. The F-15E, assigned to a strike package targeting industrial infrastructure in central Iran, received impact at altitude. Both crew members ejected. The first, the pilot, was located and rescued within hours by two U.S. military HH-60W Jolly Green II combat search and rescue helicopters operating under fighter top cover. The helicopter that picked him up was hit by small arms fire from Iranian civilians on the ground. Viral video circulated on Iranian social media within minutes. 3 men in white shirts and black pants climbing out of a car beside a field in southwestern Iran, opening fire with automatic rifles at low-flying American search and rescue helicopters. The helicopter sustained damage but landed safely. All personnel aboard received medical treatment. The pilot was extracted, but the second crew member, the weapons system officer, a U.S. Air Force colonel, had not been found. The IRGC immediately understood what they had. Iranian state television anchors broadcast urgent messages telling civilians in the area that American crew members were down and requesting they be handed over to police. On-screen crawls on some Iranian channels went further, urging civilians to shoot them if you see them. The governor of Koyale and Boyar Ahmad province held a press conference denying that any American had been captured or rescued. Iranian state media claimed the colonel had been taken prisoner. The IRGC Regional Command deployed ground forces, both regular military and Basij militia, into the mountain terrain of the province, moving toward the last known position. A race had begun, and it was a race inside enemy territory, at night in mountains, with a wounded American colonel evading capture on foot. The CIA disheartened. Here is the detail that elevates this rescue operation from an extraordinary tactical event to a masterpiece of intelligence military integration. Before the Special Operations Forces launched, before the HH-60W helicopters crossed back into Iranian airspace, before a single American commando stepped onto Iranian soil for the extraction, the Central Intelligence Agency ran an operation. According to a senior White House administration official who spoke to Fox News journalist Jennifer Griffin on April 5, 2026, prior to locating the weapons system officer and prior to executing the rescue, the CIA first launched a deliberate deception campaign, spreading word inside Iran through human assets, digital channels, and carefully crafted information operations that U.S. forces had already found the colonel and were moving him on the ground for exfiltration out of the country. Think about what that means operationally. The IRGC ground forces searching for the pilot were not operating in an information vacuum. They were monitoring Iranian media, social media, government channels, and their own military communications networks for any indication of where the American was. The CIA's deception campaign injected false positives into those networks, false locations, false timelines, false confirmation that the rescue had already happened and the colonel was already moving toward a different exfiltration route. IRGC commanders who received this information had a decision to make: pursue the false trail or hold position. Some of them moved toward the false trail. And while they moved in the wrong direction, the actual Special Operations Package, Specialized Air Force Special Warfare Commandos flying in on HH-6W Jolly Green II helicopters, covered by a layered air umbrella of fighter jets conducting simultaneous airstrikes against IRGC ground forces advancing on the extraction zone, moved toward the real one. The colonel was evading and moving, wounded in the mountains. Surviving on CSAR, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape, training that every U.S. Air Force aircrew member undergoes before deployment to a combat theater. He had made contact with the military early Friday, establishing his position through survival radio. The CIA operation and the military's targeting of IRGC forces in the area kept the closing ring at bay just long enough for the rescue package to reach him. When the helicopters landed at the extraction site, they did not land into silence. Independent journalist and former Green Beret Jack Murphy reported what he called a massive firefight on target. Reports from local Iranian sources transmitted to Iranian media and partially corroborated by social media video from the area indicated that IRGC troops and Bassi militia personnel were being transferred from a location described as Black Mountain to Dasht Hospital, large numbers of dead and wounded, following USAF strikes that targeted IRGC ground forces who had advanced during the active rescue operation. The colonel was extracted. He was wounded. Trump confirmed the rescue from the Oval Office at approximately 0500 hours Eastern Time on April 5th Easter Sunday in a Truth Social post that called it one of the most daring search and rescue operations in U.S. history. He added, "This brave warrior was behind enemy lines in the treacherous mountains of Iran, being hunted down by our enemies, who were getting closer and closer by the hour." Trump stated that the operation was executed without a single American killed or even wounded, a claim that requires reconciliation with earlier reports of helicopter crew members injured by small arms fire during the initial pilot extraction. But the strategic message was clear, unmistakable, and calibrated for maximum psychological impact on both the American public and the Iranian leadership watching from Tehran. The aircraft losses. A picture Trump did not want to show, the F-15E was not the only aircraft lost on April 3, 2026. A U.S. Air Force A-10 Thunderbolt II close air support aircraft was also lost in the Persian Gulf region the same day, its pilot rescued alive. 2 search and rescue helicopters were hit by Iranian fire, one by the civilian small arms fire that became viral video, and a second that the IRGC claimed was intercepted and destroyed south of Isfahan by their air defense systems. The known manned aircraft losses in Operation Epic Fury now stand at 7, 3 F-15s lost to friendly fire from Kuwaiti air defenses on March 2nd. All 6 crew members ejected safely and all 3 pilots had returned to combat operations by the time of the April 3rd incidents, plus the F-15E and A-10 losses of April 3rd, bringing the total confirmed combat losses to at least 2 fixed-wing aircraft destroyed by hostile Iranian fire. The last time a U.S. fighter jet was shot down in combat before this war was an A-10 during the 2003 invasion of Iraq, more than 2 decades ago. This matters for the strategic narrative in a specific and urgent way. Less than 48 hours before the F-15E went down, President Trump told the American people they have no anti-aircraft equipment. Their radar is 100% annihilated. The F-15E wreckage, photographed by Iranian media, geolocated by open-source analysts, identified by the red band tail marking of the 400 Fighter Squadron at RAF Lakenheath, is the physical contradiction of that statement sitting in the mountains of southwest Iran. Iran's military spokesperson went further, claiming that a second aircraft, described as a fifth-generation F-35, was struck and downed over central Iran by the same new IRGC Aerospace Force air defense system. CENTCOM denied that claim. But the IRGC released video that appears to show a different aircraft maneuvering and releasing flares before ground-based FLIR systems tracked its trajectory. The status of that second aircraft claim remains unverified. What is verified, Iran retains residual air defense capability that the US did not anticipate, and that capability is actively engaging American strike packages on Day 35 of a war that was supposed to have achieved air dominance on Day 3. The total U.S. casualty count as of April 4, 2026 stands at 13 service members killed in action and 365 wounded. The Iranian Health Ministry reports more than 2,076 killed by U.S.-Israeli strikes since February 28. Over 30 Iranian universities have been targeted since the beginning of the war. The IRGC assassinated Muchin, Lissamili in the crosshairs on the same day the F-15E went down. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps escalated its threat matrix into a domain that has never before been part of a conventional military conflict, Silicon Valley. According to NPR's reporting from April 4th, the IRGC formally published a list of 18 U.S. technology and defense companies as declared targets for further assassination attempts. The list includes Palantir, Meta, Google, and Microsoft. This is not a conventional military threat. This is an explicit declaration by a state military force that the executives, infrastructure, and personnel of the largest technology companies in the world are legitimate targets in the current conflict. Palantir provides AI-driven targeting and intelligence analysis directly to U.S. military operations. Meta controls the communications infrastructure that billions of people use to organize, coordinate, and transmit information, including the encrypted channels being used by Iranian resistance groups communicating inside Iran during the current conflict. Google's cloud infrastructure and AI systems underpin a significant portion of U.S. defense and intelligence community operations. The IRGC's publication of this list is not random escalation. It is a calculated response to the killing of the man who was running their back-channel diplomacy. Former Foreign Minister Karazi struck at his Tehran home on April 1st while arranging a peace meeting with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance through Pakistani intermediaries. The IRGC's logic is straightforward: if you will strike our diplomats, we will threaten your corporate infrastructure. And unlike a missile battery in the Zagros Mountains that can be destroyed by a JDAM, a cyber-capable actor with explicit state authorization to attack the most consequential technology companies in the world operates in a domain where the targeting solutions are far less clean. U.S. Cyber Command has been operating in a heightened defensive posture since February 28. The F-15E shootdown, the IRGC casualty lists from the rescue operation, and the Silicon Valley assassination declaration all happened in the same 48-hour window. The multi-domain escalation architecture that Iran's military doctrine has always theorized is now operating in real time. The bridge. Trump's Srinal and Iran's answer on April 3rd. The same day the F-15E was shot down, President Trump posted video of a bridge being bombed. The target, the B-1 bridge, a major infrastructure link connecting Tehran to Karaj, a bridge that Iranian media reported was still under construction. 8 people were killed in the strike. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi responded directly, striking civilian structures including unfinished bridges will not compel Iranians to surrender. Trump then warned publicly that the United States hasn't even started destroying what's left in Iran. The dual messaging "bomb a bridge, threaten more" was not improvised. It was a deliberate escalation signal timed to the final 72 hours before the April 6th Karg Island deadline. The signal read, "We are willing to destroy civilian infrastructure if you do not open the Strait of Hormuz, and we will publish the video of it to your own population in real time." Iran's operational commander of the Qadam al-Anbiya Central Headquarters, the IRGC's Supreme Operational Command, responded publicly, "If hostilities expand, the entire region will become hell for you." General Ibrahim Zulfagari, the headquarters spokesperson, added, "The illusion of defeating the Islamic Republic of Iran has turned into a swamp that will engulf you." On April 4th, an Iranian missile struck in the vicinity of the IDF's Kuria headquarters in Tel Aviv. And on April 5th, today, Iranian forces struck the Mashhar petrochemical zone, killing 5 people and wounding 170 others. Mashhar is not a military target. It is one of the largest petrochemical complexes in the Middle East. The message from Tehran: you strike our industry, we strike yours. Ayan Sikti, the Situation Room. Easter Sunday, Trump and his national security team spent April 5, 2026 Easter Sunday in the White House Situation Room tracking the rescue operation in real time. Secretary of Defense Hegseth monitored operations throughout the day. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs General Dan Kane coordinated the rescue package. The president was in the Oval Office or the Oval Dining Room all day receiving constant updates, a White House official confirmed. When the colonel was finally extracted and the rescue confirmed, Trump's Easter Sunday post on Truth Social declared, "We truly have the best, most professional and lethal military in the history of the world. God bless America, God bless Okroops, and Happy Easter to Holf." What that post did not address, the April 6th deadline, now less than 36 hours away. The Strait of Hormuz, still closed. Karg Island, still processing whatever reduced volume of oil it can move through a war zone. And a single question hanging over every oil market, every energy ministry in Europe, every tanker captain sitting at anchor in the Gulf of Oman: does Trump pull the trigger on Karg Island at 2000 hours Eastern Time tomorrow, or does he find another 10-day extension to negotiate through a diplomatic channel that he may have personally destroyed when he struck the man running it? What? The F-15E means for the history books. Step back from the operational detail and consider the strategic frame. The last time a U.S. fighter aircraft was shot down in combat by hostile fire before this war was April 2003. For 23 years, the United States Air Force conducted combat operations across Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, Libya, and Somalia without losing a single aircraft to enemy fire. The F-15E wreckage in the Koljile Mountains, photographed, published, geolocated, and verified, ends that streak. It ends it in a way that every adversary air defense community in the world is now studying with the same intensity that Beijing studied the first F-35 air-to-air kill 3 weeks ago. Because if an IRGC system operating autonomously, without network command and control, without the radar infrastructure that U.S. electronic warfare assets targeted and destroyed in the opening 72 hours of Operation Epic Fury, if that system can still bring down an F-15E on day 35 of the most sustained U.S. air campaign since the Gulf War, then what does that mean for day 1 of a conflict that starts with an adversary who has not had 35 days of their air defenses systematically destroyed? What does it mean for Taiwan? What does it mean for the South China Sea? The answer, as always, lies in the details. The ROD-2, or its equivalent, is a medium-altitude system. It is not a threat to aircraft operating at very high altitude or using advanced electronic countermeasures packages. The F-15E that went down was on a strike mission, operating in an environment that required it to be at a medium altitude over a target. The mission profile created the vulnerability. But understanding that distinction requires a level of technical nuance that no 30-second network news segment will provide. What the footage of the wreckage provides, what Iranian state media's relentless publication of the debris images provides, is a political narrative. And in this war, as in every war, the political narrative is as much a weapon as the missile. Iran's military told its people, "We shot down their plane." Their 100% annihilated radar killed an F-15E. Their mountain population hunted the pilot. Their forces moved to capture him. The narrative of American invincibility. The narrative that Trump has been selling in every speech, every Truth Social post, every Pentagon briefing, has a crack in it. The crack is visible. It is in the mountains of Kolyai. And the CIA deception campaign, the Special Operations firefight, the Jolly Green 2 helicopters landing hot in enemy territory, all of that heroism, all of that technical capability, all of that institutional excellence, was required precisely because the narrative of 100% annihilated radar was not the complete truth. Solosing, here is the truth about what happened in the last 48 hours. An American aircraft went down inside Iran. An American colonel, wounded, hunted, surviving on CSAR training in a mountain wilderness, spent 36 hours one step ahead of a regime trying to parade him before the world's cameras as proof that the United States does not have the air dominance it claims. And the United States sent everything it had: CIA deception operations, Special Operations Commands, Air Force Special Warfare Pararescue Teams, HH-60W Jolly Green 2s, HC-130J Combat King CSAR aircraft, fighter cover, surveillance drones, and the full weight of the most capable military on Earth into hostile Iranian territory to bring one colonel home. They got him on Easter Sunday, alive. But tomorrow, April 6, 2026, at 2000 hours Eastern Time, the deadline for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz expires. Karg Island is still there. The power plants are still there. The desalination infrastructure is still there. The strait is still closed. And the man who was arranging the meeting that might have changed that equation is on a ventilator in a Tehran hospital. The rescue of a U.S. Air Force colonel from the mountains of southwest Iran is one of the finest hours in the history of American special operations. No other military in the world could have executed what happened in those mountains on April 4th and 5th, 2026. The CIA deception, the firefight, the extraction under fire. 0 Americans killed. That is not luck. That is institutional excellence built over decades of the hardest training on Earth, and it deserves to be recognized for exactly what it is. But excellence in rescue does not answer the strategic question. It does not open the strait. It does not replace the diplomat whose home was struck on April 1st. It does not resolve the tension between a president who says the war is nearing completion and an adversary who just published a formal assassination list targeting Google, Meta, and Palantir. It does not answer the question of what happens at 2000 hours Eastern Time tomorrow when the most consequential military deadline since the Gulf War expires. What happens next will be written in the next 24 hours. Watch carefully, because the people who are not watching carefully right now, the 67% of Americans who, according to CNN polls, believe Trump does not have a clear plan, may wake up on April 7th to find out what extremely hard actually means when applied to a country's entire energy and civilian infrastructure simultaneously. Stay sharp, stay informed. And when someone asks you what changed this week in the Iran war, tell them an F-15 went down, the CIA ran a deception campaign inside enemy territory, special forces fought the IRGC in the Iranian mountains on Easter Sunday, and a U.S. colonel came home alive. That is what changed. And the clock to April 6th is still running.